Human rights groups have condemned a decision not to try Haiti's former ruler Jean-Claude Duvalier on crimes against humanity. Will his victims ever get justice? You're watching Inside Story Americas from Washington. Hello, I'm Shihab Rutansi. Human Rights Watch called it the most important criminal case in Haitian history. But this week, a Haitian judge decided that the former leader, Jean-Claude Duvalier, should not stand trial for crimes against humanity. Known as Baby Doc, Duvalier is accused of the torture and murder of thousands of his own people during his 15-year rule in the 70s and 80s. A year ago, he made a surprise return to the country after 25 years in exile. The judge has ruled that his alleged crimes fall outside Haiti's statute of limitations. The judge did, however, say Duvalier should stand trial on corruption charges. He's accused of embezzling hundreds of millions of dollars during his rule. Not surprisingly, human rights groups have heavily criticized the decision. They say they gave prosecutors hundreds of documents detailing cases of abuse. The United Nations, which has its own troubled history in Haiti, has also condemned the ruling. But it is likely to please Haiti's current president, Michel Martelly, who has close connections with Duvalier and has supported him since his return. Al Jazeera asked some Haitians in the capital, Port-au-Prince, what they made of the decision.
I don't think judging Jean-Claude Duvalier is what we need. This is a criminal country. He's not the only one who committed crimes here. We just need national reconciliation.
Hundreds of people have been killed and jailed. I think there should be justice for those who died. There are some crimes we can't forgive, like murder. Lots of people who lost their relatives and were victims during Jean-Claude Duvalier's regime filed complaints. I wish there would be justice.
It's better to think about development so that the country can move forward instead of arresting Duvalier. That won't bring us anywhere. Who can arrest Duvalier? There are no honest people who can judge Duvalier because everyone's guilty.
So, is reconciliation better than justice in Haiti? With me to discuss this in the studio is journalist Kim Ives, who works for Haiti Liberté, the newspaper. Next to him, Jean-Yves Point-du-Jour, a Haitian-American radio host. And from Boston, Massachusetts, Brian Concannon from the Institute for Justice and Democracy in Haiti. Brian, let's begin with you then. Is there a statute of limitations that the Haitian Constitution demands for human rights abuses?
There's a statute of limitations for the crimes of which Duvalier is accused of: murder, torture, forced disappearance. But according to a fairly well-settled principle of international law that is binding on Haiti through Haiti's constitution, the statute of limitations do not apply if it's a crime against humanity, if it's a widespread political attack against civilians.
And this is what, because of international conventions and also perhaps because many of these cases remain outstanding. There has been no statute of limitations on some of these cases because they haven't been solved.
Yes, especially, well, the forced disappearances, the statute of limitations actually doesn't run yet because those remain unsolved. But for the murders where people were found, the statute of limitations starts running, but because it's part of a widespread political attack, the statute of limitations does not apply to that.
All right, let's hear from Duvalier's lawyer. This is what he had to say after the ruling was given.
Allegations made by these people, they are against the law because the statute of limitation for crime is 10 years, and then they complain more than 25 years after. So I said before, like I said, there is nothing they can do about it.
Brian Concannon, then, is it our understanding that the judge basically accepted that argument in full then?
Yes, and ignored the arguments, the submissions by the victims explaining why that argument was not based in international law. Briefly, there's the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, which Haiti's accepted the jurisdiction of that court, and the court has very clearly said that if it's a crime against humanity, that a statute of limitations cannot apply, and that the government has an affirmative obligation to prosecute.
How was this investigation conducted, would you say, Brian?
It was conducted with some persistence up until May. So from January, when Mr. Duvalier returned, up until May. After May, it was not conducted at all. The prosecutor did not present any new evidence to the judge, including evidence that was given to the prosecutor's office by victims. The prosecutor just did not hand them on. As far as we can tell, there was no investigative work done after May of 2011.
But even before that, was it a transparent process?
It was a decent process. Under the administration of President Préval, it was not perfect, but there were prosecutors who were working on the case. They were getting their own information and more importantly, giving the information that the plaintiffs had, that Duvalier's victims had, and giving that to the judge. So up until May, there was actually a fairly serious investigation. Then you had a change of administrations, and as soon as a change of administrations happened, the investigation ground to a halt.
So is this over for those wanting to prosecute Duvalier for crimes against humanity?
No, certainly it isn't. The plaintiffs, the victims have a right to appeal. Other victims have the right to have their case heard. This decision makes it harder, but the problem is really a political one. Factually, it's an easy case. There's mountains of evidence over 15 years. Legally, it's a fairly easy case. The problem is just that it's a political decision made by the government not to prosecute. And if that can be changed, then there can certainly be a prosecution that gives the victims justice.
Yves, Point-du-Jour, one reason, I mean, if this is a political decision, then one reason why the decision might have been made was because it's time to look forward and not backward. This will reopen old wounds and so forth. These are the sort of arguments we often hear. Do you think that this would lead to instability if Duvalier is prosecuted?
No, I don't think so. I think this is something that is owed to the nation. And we cannot have reconciliation without justice. That is, those people who have committed this crime, including Duvalier, they ought to be tried. And the nation ought to find out exactly what happened under the Duvalier era. Because all those people who died, we owe it to them to find that out.
But what about, I mean, we often hear, certainly in the press in the US, that there isn't that much interest anymore. The young people don't remember him. If he is remembered, Duvalier is remembered for bringing stability to Haiti, it's often said. That's something I read in US newspapers quite a bit. Is there truth to that?
We have a young generation, but at the same time, a nation that forgot its past is bound to repeat it again. So that's why the Duvalierists, they've been trying for years to erase that past, the memories of what happened under the Duvalier dictatorship. But I don't think it's an easy task, because there are people there who remember, and history is there.
Well, let's remind ourselves then of Jean-Claude Duvalier's history. Baby Doc, as he was known, was only 19 when he was named Haiti's president for life in 1971 after the death of his father, Francois, known as Papa Doc. Human rights groups say the Duvaliers used the paramilitary group the Tonton Macoute to torture opponents and kill 30,000 people during their combined 29-year rule. During Baby Doc's 15 years in power, hundreds of political prisoners were allegedly tortured or disappeared in prisons collectively known as the Triangle of Death. Duvalier is also accused of embezzling between $300 million and $800 million of government assets. His upcoming trial, if it occurs, is only on the corruption allegations. Kim, Ives, help us understand then those numbers. It's very difficult to really comprehend, actually.
Well, yeah, it's quite well established, the amount of money that was stolen. We, in Haiti Progrès during the 1980s, published canceled checks that were made out to cash to buy fur coats and sports cars. No, I think the thing that we have to remember with Duvalier is that he is a symbol, and if he gets away with murder, that means all the people he represents, because the Duvalierists have been there beyond these past 25 years. There were basically neo-Duvalierist coups in 1991, 2004, and all the people connected with these coups who committed crimes, massacres, extrajudicial killings, torture, they also should be judged. So if you let him off the hook, you're letting all them off the hook.
And we'll come on to those connections he still has with those who run Haiti, perhaps, in a few moments. But Brian Concannon, is there actually proof of direct command responsibility as far as the killing and the torture and the disappearances are concerned? Or I believe, there are some who say, look, he was simply this spoilt playboy who didn't have anything to do with it.
There's no direct evidence that I've seen that Jean-Claude Duvalier pulled a trigger or wielded a nightstick. But there's ample evidence that he controlled a repressive apparatus that was systematically killing, torturing, and intimidating political opponents. I think that he has some argument when he was 19 and he first got there, he has some argument that he didn't effectively control that apparatus, but that argument weakens every day until 1986 when he was 34 years old. And certainly by the mid-80s, by the mid-70s, he did control enough of that apparatus to be held legally responsible. And we can see that in the way the appointments were made, in his speeches, in the way that other observers chronicled how things within the National Palace were managed, that he did really control that apparatus.
And certainly the State Department kept close tabs on him. I'm sure they have a great deal of evidence that would be useful. How much international cooperation has there been in attempting to bring Duvalier to justice, Brown?
There's been some cooperation from the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights and from the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, fairly good collaboration and cooperation. But from governments, it's been almost zero. Canada has done some, has provided some lawyers to help the case and some statements in support of the prosecution, but no other government, as far as I know, has done anything positive. The United States government has said that they're going to leave it up to the Haitian justice system, which most people in Haiti interpret as the U.S. being against the prosecution. Certainly, you're right that the U.S. State Department has boxes and boxes of documents that could help establish command responsibility. They have not offered to produce those. They have not offered any technical assistance to the Haitian government from the U.S. State Department, which has dozens of lawyers with experience prosecuting these kinds of cases. They've decided not to in any way support the prosecution so far.
Kim Ives, it is striking how the contrast in reaction from the U.S. and the Obama administration to Duvalier's return and the return of Jean-Bertrand Aristide, the democratically elected president who was overthrown. And in fact, many in Washington say, well, look, if you want Duvalier arrested, then you need to arrest and try Aristide. Is there any equivalence at all between these two as far as justice is concerned? And what should we make about that reaction?
No, none at all. And like you say, it was made very clear in the WikiLeaks documents that we published in Haiti Liberté, in particular, that the U.S. fought tooth and nail against Aristide's return from South Africa. But for Duvalier to come in January of last year, it's for sure he had a wink and a nod from the powers that be. He knew somebody had to have his back. He wasn't going to come to Haiti without knowing that somewhere they were behind him. So to me, there's no equivalency. That's what President Martelly is trying to do. He made that tour around to different presidents earlier this year, and it was basically to establish this reconciliation theme. He visited Aristide, who he's cursed in the future, in the past as his persona as Sweet Mickey, and then visited Duvalier. And to me, in both cases, it was a way really to exonerate Duvalier.
Yves, how is it that Duvalier then continues to live so well in Haiti and be so confident as well? Going to all the fancy restaurants, being introduced to Bill Clinton recently, and so forth. Where does its confidence spring from, do you think?
Two things. The Duvalier's apparatus is still there. That's one. And two, we have I'm glad to say I use that term too. I've been using that term recently. I got it from Kim. It's the president of Haiti is a stealth Duvalierist. And so he has all the confidence that he can have to do the things that he's doing right now. And not only that, you have his son, Nicolas, working in Martelly's office.
Let's just run through some of those connections, actually. The Haitian government under Martelly includes many with links to Duvalier-era figures. The most prominent tie is Duvalier's son, Francois Nicolas, or Nico, who's a consultant to Martelly. Then there's Daniel Supplice, a minister and ambassador under Duvalier. He's part of Martelly's cabinet. Supplice hasn't himself been directly tied to the abuses associated with the Duvalier regime. 5 high-ranking cabinet members, including Prime Minister Gary Conille, are children of senior Duvalier-era officials. Martelly, meanwhile, also wants to restore Haiti's disbanded army. That's a long-standing priority of Duvalier's small political base. And actually, Martelly has been speaking about the potential for prosecuting Duvalier in rather confusing terms recently. Here's what Duvalier had to say recently.
I couldn't just pardon Duvalier. It would have to be a consensus among all leaders, all political parties. We would have to sit and see, because you cannot forget those who have suffered from that era, from that time, you know. But I do believe that we need that reconciliation in Haiti. I do believe so.
So clearly that was Michel Martelly talking about Duvalier, and then he said he was misunderstood, that he wasn't necessarily calling for a pardon for Duvalier. But Kim, to help us understand what's actually happening, perhaps we need to have an explanation of how the political order is structured in Haiti now, and then perhaps, I mean, has it changed? Who is running Haiti, basically?
Well, it's interesting that the names you mentioned were just the tip of the iceberg, because the scariest part is what's happening behind the scene. For instance, they've set up what they call the SIN, the Intelligence Service, National Intelligence Service, which was set up during the first coup d'etat. It's headed by Joseph Baguidi, who was instrumental in rounding up militants who were resisting the first coup d'etat. That has been reestablished under Martelly. You have in the palace 2 figures who were lieutenants of Guy Philippe, the leader of the so-called rebels who spearheaded the campaign against Aristide in 2004. They are at the head of the palace guard now. So a lot of these figures of the coup, death squad members, former army officials, coup-making police officers, are all being integrated into the security apparatus.
And Yves, it was often said in the 70s and 80s that 5 families, beyond the political establishment, it was 5 families who basically ran Haiti as far as the business and commercial interests were concerned. Is that still the case, would you say?
That's still the case. As far as I know, even President Martelly said it himself, 2%. So run the country. So this is, a typical problem in Haiti.
These are the same people who still perhaps who owe Duvalier quite a bit for their position and...
behind Martelly.
Yeah, who were behind Martelly, who also backed Duvalier.
That's the same group of people. That's what I said, the apparatus, the same status quo is still there. And we cannot forget the international community, because we have United States, they have United States backing 100% those people. When they come to Haiti, the same thing you said earlier about Champagne, when they come to Haiti, those people, they contact, the State Department gave them their names as contacts. They don't know what's going on the ground, they don't know what's going on with the Haitian people, they only listen to those people and then they come back and make statements or they act.
Is it clear why Duvalier came back? Is it perhaps to have a future role in politics, or is it simply just to take his retirement place amongst the business interests of Haiti as it was before?
No, I think he wants to have a future role in politics, and that's why his lawyer, Renaud Georges, that you just saw on the tape, is saying that Duvalier right now is the most popular man in the country, which is an absolute ridiculous statement.
And one thing I think we should add to that is the secondary role that Duvalier played in destroying people's lives and livelihoods. For the U.S. State Department, he spearheaded a campaign to kill 2 million Creole pigs. This destroyed the Haitian peasantry in 1983. And in many ways, it was a genocide of pigs. And this really changed the Haitian economy for up until today.
And so forth. We'll get on to that in a second. Brian, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just in terms of the timing of Mr. Duvalier's return, I think part of it was also motivated by his attempt to get $7 million of his funds that had been seized in a Swiss court, and that I believe he was unable to get them after February 1st of 2011. I think he came back to Haiti in January, hoping that he could spend a couple days, not get prosecuted, and then go back to Switzerland and get that $7 million.
Kim, let's return then to the future of Haiti. Throughout Haiti's history, international actors and these local elites, I suppose is the term, have acted together to try and chart a future. And economically, that usually means a liberal investment climate for international corporations, very little regulation, very little workers' rights, and so forth. Pretty much the same investment climate that Duvalier instituted for Haiti. Has anything changed in that? Perhaps that's another reason why Duvalier fits and slots so nicely back into Haiti all these years later?
Yeah, well, in addition to what Brian was just saying, I think that also we had Martelly poised, and we have to remember in January the election wasn't yet established. Martelly was really being selected by the U.S. State Department. Hillary Clinton was going down and saying this is the candidate who should be in the runoff. So I think Duvalier's return also provided a sort of political force in that election. And I think generally speaking, the model that we see coming from Martelly is exactly Jean-Claude's model. It's sweatshops, tourism. This is the way Haiti is supposedly going to develop, a model which we've seen fail, crash and burn everywhere.
We were told that under Bill Clinton, who understands the mistakes of the past, and indeed figures like Paul Farmer, who's had a huge history and so forth, we would have a more enlightened economic model, and indeed the influence of Brazil and other regional actors. We couldn't go back again.
Well, no, I think that notwithstanding what President Clinton has said about Martelly, that he's the most dynamic leader he's seen in 30 years and so forth, I think the Haitian people have a different perception. They consider that election was a selection, and especially now with his nationality, his citizenship coming into question, President Martelly's, I think they're facing a very grave crisis.
I think there's also another powerful force that we tend to neglect, which is the Dominican Republic. And we have the elites in the Dominican Republic allied with the elites in Haiti. Now, with the complicity of US backing. Now, what happened in Haiti is the fact that every time those people, they have a plan for Haiti, the people of Haiti always revolted and ended up fighting against that plan. And that's always, problematic for those sectors.
But help us understand, Kim, why Haiti, why it's so difficult for the US and other international actors to allow Haiti to develop in an equitable manner that isn't following this model of development of elites and imposed economic plans and so forth?
Well, I think as Noam Chomsky says, it's the problem of setting a bad example. I mean, here's a country which set a bad example for the entire hemisphere. In 1804, they had the first successful and last slave revolution, and were the touchstone for the rebellions across the continent. In many ways, Haiti has played that role. In 1990, it was the first country to foil U.S. election engineering by electing Jean-Bertrand Aristide. And so I think Haiti has this role of being sort of a vanguard nation, and the U.S. has to really, that's why it is now the one militarily occupied country in the Western Hemisphere. They have to keep it clamped down.
And one thing to add is the fact that you can see all those countries in Latin America and the Caribbean that U.S. invaded, they all play baseball, except Haiti.
But Yves, I mean, that suggests, though, that if Duvalier was tried, it might give a false impression that things have changed when they haven't changed.
No. Things have not changed. And I don't think things are going to change the next day or tomorrow. No, I don't think so. We have problem inside the country because institutions in the country, they're not working. The reason they're not working, the U.S. policy has always been to have a weak government in the country, not a strong government. So with the coming of the NGOs, in the past, as a matter of fact, you heard that term, the Republic of NGOs. So that has made the countries weaker and weaker and weaker, government becoming more dependent on the outside world. And it's going to take us a while to have someone to come there with great political power and political will with the people to do that. And it may not be peaceful again.
Yves.
I think it's important to note that the Duvalier prosecution itself is a powerful opportunity to make that change. I think in two ways. First, it's an opportunity to build the justice system. It can attract resources and it can attract the spotlight, and it can make everybody raise their ability to provide justice. But I think it's also vitally important as a way of making a very concrete break from the past. And if you are able to convict Mr. Duvalier and his associates the political violence and financial malfeasance, which is really what is plaguing Haiti, you can make a break and you can deter future stealing, future killing, and that itself will be a historic
Brian
change.
Concannon, thank you very much. Yves, Point-du-Jour, thank you. Akim Ives, thank you. That's all from the team here in Washington, D.C. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Facebook, where you can find more information about the program. And we want to hear from you. Tell us what stories you think we should be covering. Send your ideas directly to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net.